Well, there we all were on Wednesday afternoon watching the BBC News channel, which was as informative as ever. And up popped friend of the podcast, Clare Wenham, the global health policy expert from LSE. And then, well, you all know what happened.
So how can we make sure that they're getting the right data now so we don't have this problem again?
What's your daughter called?
She's called Scarlett.
Scarlett, I think it looks better on the lower shelf. And it's a lovely unicorn.
What's his name?
And do stop me if you need to crack on. Do tell us.
His name's Christian.
Christian.
Yes.
That's deciding where it can go, where Mummy wants it to go.
Oh right. Where does Mummy want it to go?
I think just on that shelf is great. Thank you. I'm so sorry.
And Claire is here now.
Hi.
How have the last 24 hours been for you?
Been a bit weird, and just hearing that clip makes me feel a bit sick thinking about it.
Oh, why?
I don't know. I mean, it's always weird hearing your own voice. I'm sure you guys know that more than anyone else. But then kind of seeing what's happened and what's blown up in the last 24 hours, it's just all a bit weird.
Well, talking of that, Claire, I mean, normally I'd have lots of questions about global health policy and the pandemic. But of course, we only want to talk to Scarlett. Where is she?
Well, she really wanted to come on, and I told her how excited everyone was going to be to talk to her. But we're currently having fish finger gate. She's refusing to eat her fish fingers, and I told her she couldn't come on until she finished them. I thought that might make it work, but 4-year-old's will turns out is strong.
Because I wondered, though, it's because I just noticed that you were on the Today Show on NBC in America this morning.
The biggest programme in the
Exactly.
world.
So you've gone global. I just wondered if maybe she was too big for us now.
Yeah, something like that. It was really weird. One of my best friends lives in Kansas, and she was suddenly ringing me being like, "What are you doing on my TV?" And I was like, "I don't know."
Claire, where is the unicorn tonight? Because me and Adam can't see you. So where is it?
Can you not see it? It's on the top shelf where she left it.
Excellent.
That's terrific placing, I think.
Claire, lovely to catch up with you. Next time we're on, I promise we'll talk about the latest on the lockdown in Panama or the executive committee of the World Health Organization or something like that.
But maybe
I'm always here to chat policy.
Yes. And if you could let Scarlett know that if she does want to tune in to this minor television and podcast, we're going to be talking about schools, air bridges, and actually we do have some other celebrities on.
Didn't they say never work with children and animals? And we've got Scarlett having her fish fingers. She won't even come to the TV. And then we're trying to have Labradors later in the programme.
We are going to also have some animals on this edition of the Coronavirus Newscast. What could possibly go wrong?
The Coronavirus Newscast from the BBC.
Hello, it's Adam in the studio.
And Laura in the studio, 2 metres apart.
And Chris in another studio about 20 metres away.
No, none of your children going to jump into that cupboard at any point, Chris?
I have padlocked the door.
Okay.
Are they somewhere else in the newsroom where they might suddenly wander into our
office.
studio?
Yeah, I've sent them in your direction, exactly, yeah.
Anyway, today, children across England got the news, well, actually, maybe they hadn't been waiting for, I don't know how they feel about it, that in September, everyone will be going back to school in England. That is 8.82 million children. And the news was announced by Gavin Williamson, the Education Secretary, at our old friend, the Downing Street Daily Briefing, which came back for one day only.
From September, attendance will once again be mandatory, and no child should be out of school unless it has been agreed. This will be crucial if we are to minimise the effect of this pandemic on every child's long-term educational development.
Now, there was a bit of a false start, though, wasn't there, Laura, about schools going back? Because initially the government's dream scenario was that all primary school children would be back kind of now.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been very, very messy because different schools, different kinds of schools, different parts of the country, different local authorities, different parents, different head teachers have taken very, very different views on what's possible and what's not possible. And of course, there have been thousands of different circumstances because no school is identical. And the government's been heavily criticised for not taking more of a kind of forceful national role and saying, look, this is how it's meant to happen. We're going to do everything we can. So therefore, now the return in September, well, there's a lot of pressure on that because I think the government can't afford to have a sort of political mess up twice in a row by not providing clear enough guidance. But today, the guidance that came out, well, that is another whole load of rules and regulations in itself. It's not going to be straightforward.
You could probably do a GCSE just in that. Oh, that's an idea.
I was going to say.
volunteer as first teacher of that.
There you go.
Right, let's work through these guidelines then, because we're joined now by Francesca Craik, who is from St Bede's Comprehensive School in County Durham. Hello, Mrs Craik.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Well, I like your massive headphones. Looks like you're about to do a DJ set. But let's get our heads down, turn over the exam papers. And so we thought maybe actually, because there's a lot of stuff to get through, we might just go through what's going to be a typical school day from September for you. So let's start off. Getting to school, what's the school bus going to be like?
Well, I think principally this is going to be one of the most challenging things for leaders, schools to be able to get to grips with, because we've been given the guidance that children must remain in their bubbles whilst they're in school, but they're allowed to travel together on school buses. So for a school like mine, which has got 10 different school buses coming to our site, that's going to be really quite difficult to ensure that social distancing happens on the buses. There's certainly no capacity to have additional buses put on. We have to stagger and start lessons at different points for different year groups. But in a school like mine, with over 500 children coming in on buses, am I going to have to start looking at a curriculum which is dictated by which bus arrives on site rather than by the year groups which I would normally teach children in? I think that part of this really hasn't been thought through with the full picture of how schools truly operate. Likewise for parents as well. There'll be a lot of parents who will want to drop their children off because of anxieties around transport. But if you've got children in different year groups and there's staggered starts, and perhaps there's half an hour or 45 minutes between different year groups starting in a school, how are parents going to accommodate that as well? So there's certainly things to be thought through.
And the whole principle is, isn't it, that the classes are basically meant to stick with each other in their bubbles all day and all the time. But after the morning, so arriving at school in the morning is going to be tricky enough. What about when they actually then get there?
So once they actually physically get onto site, we'll have to have a variety of entrances to welcome people into. We were fortunate enough, because I'm part of a relatively large trust, Bishop Chaddock, to invest in individual hand washing basins. So we have additional capacity within our school. But I do wonder what that will be like for other school leaders up and down the country. And once pupils are in, then we've also got to make very, very difficult decisions around specialist provision as well. So if, for example, my year sevens are going to be housed in their bubble in humanities, who's going to get the specialist science labs? Which year group am I going to have to attribute them to? So there are going to be some real challenges for school leaders around this, because schools generally operate at maximum capacity. So there aren't spare classrooms to put additional children into. We're going to have to make some hard decisions. So it might be that the science labs for GCSE classes, that's where year 11 have to go. That's their area. And we'll have to teach them other subjects in the science.
Oh, so you could just be stuck in a science lab for the rest of the school year, or for the first half of the school year, yeah?
Potentially, because another one of the issues is that the government is advising us that they want to minimise contact. So that means infrequent crossing in corridors. Some school corridors are so incredibly narrow. I mean, some schools are really, really old in terms of their build. So how you'd physically get the kids from one place to another without coming into contact with another year group is, again, another logistical problem. Because once you've moved children from one area of a school, they have to naturally filter into another part of the school. There's no holding pens in a school. There's no spare space. So where do these children go to? So ultimately, on a bubble, you might have to look genuinely at, you're in this area of the school and we're going to have to bring the staff to you in order for that to work.
Can you imagine the rivalry, though, as well? You get the music suite, or you get the science lab, or you get the gym hall. You're going to have to play basketball for 2 years and you're not going to do your exams. Imagine how you'd handle that. Goodness me.
Mrs. Craik, the school day, first day back in September, is sounding quite complicated already, and we haven't even got to morning break or lunchtime, and that's going to throw up a load of logistical challenges as well, no doubt.
Undoubtedly, because again, we want the best for our students. Parents want the best for their children. The area I work in, we have a large number of children who are on free school meals, and that will be a reflective picture up and down the country as well. We want to be able to give our children a 2-course hot meal. Now, with limited dining space and staggered lunch breaks, some schools might realistically have to start looking at feeding children from 10 o'clock in the morning if you're going to be able to get them all the way through. Or if you're really limited on your dining space, it might be that you have to invest it. We are currently looking into investing in hot lockers, so our children, wherever they are in the building, can still have a hot meal delivered to them.
Like an airline meal, like when you push going chicken or beef, really? So
that kind of a principle, because we think that it's wrong just to offer children a cold lunch choice. That would be an easy thing for us to do, but is that the right thing for children when we know that food is such a critical component of children being successful at school?
When you add up all of these challenges that you face, I suppose a question some might come to is it going to be worth it? I guess trying to offer education, however limiting, is worth it. But my goodness, the list of challenges you're setting out here is colossal.
It is colossal. I'm fortunate again, I work within a very successful trust and we've got lots of school leaders. We have shared planning days to try and tackle this together. But I do really feel for isolated school leaders who might genuinely be looking at the guidance today and thinking, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I've got to do this, and it's going to prove very, very difficult. In principle, what the government is setting out is entirely rational. We all want children back in school. Of course we do. I'm a mother myself. I have a son who's about to transition into secondary school too. Everybody wants kids back in school, but there are a lot of challenges, and I think by us not being afforded any further financial support from the government as well, hot lockers for food, they come at a premium. Additional cleaning, which has to take place in school, that comes at a premium. Additional resources so that children aren't handling the same equipment as each other, that comes at a premium as well. But there doesn't seem to be anything.
So lots of pressure on you and lots of pressure on the government as well to get it right, because millions of parents are looking at this very, very anxiously over the next few months. But could you just clarify one thing for us, Mrs. Craik? As far as you understand it, what happens if a teacher or a pupil actually contracts coronavirus? Because we've seen in Leicester, for example, where cases have popped up again, schools have been immediately closed. What do you think will happen in that circumstance?
So hopefully the track and trace system will be so robust that we'd be able to immediately take action around that. My understanding is that if I have a staff member or a pupil in a particular year group and there's been close enough contact, that I would have to disband the whole bubble, including the members of staff who've worked within that bubble too. So when you get into staffing ratios with schools again, if I was to lose a significant proportion of staff who, for example, might all teach year 8, then that might have a knock-on effect with how I would be able to staff the rest of the school safely. So if one bubble pops within a school, particularly if you have a very large school and a large year group, that could pop your whole school effectively.
A lot to think about in the GCSE on COVID secure schools in England. Francesca, Craik, thank you very much and good luck with the first day of school, which is still quite a long way off, but a lot to sort out by then.
Only 2 weeks.
I suppose, yes. So you've got to get it all in place now. So you then have the summer holiday, so it's then all ready to go in September. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Craik.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye. Well, before school goes back, you have the school holidays. But will we be able to go abroad for the school holidays? Chris, what is the latest on what we used to call air bridges, then we called travel corridors, but now no one really knows what they actually are?
So for 3.5 months, we've had this unprecedented advice, haven't we, of being told not to travel abroad unless it's absolutely necessary. And what we're going to get is imminent, although it's been imminent for quite a while, is a list of countries that we can travel to, but also that we can travel back from without having to quarantine for a couple of weeks when we get back. We should get that list on Friday, about 70 countries. Whole thing been delayed because countries have been put on the list and then taken off the list. And also there's been a bit of a row with the devolved administrations who wanted to have a say as well. The curiosity being that borders are a matter for the UK government, but health advice is a matter for Edinburgh, Cardiff and Belfast. And there's been a bit of a row that has blown up publicly involving Nicola Sturgeon, the First Minister of Scotland, and Grant Shapps, the Transport Secretary at Westminster, about how that was all happening. But we are finally going to get a list pretty soon. So
the list of red countries you shouldn't go to, amber countries which you should think about before you go, and green countries which are totally okay. So let's chat to somebody whose business is holidays. It's Andrea Bertoli, who's the boss of lastminute.com. Hello.
Hello.
No,
hello, everybody.
actually, hello. Now think about it. This government policy, is it actually a bit lastminute.com, as some people say?
Yeah, I would say it's even more than lastminute.com. We were expecting the list on Monday. Monday, they said later the week. Now it's supposed to be tomorrow. Let's hope they get their act together and finalize the list.
Has that delay cost you money and caused chaos in the travel industry?
No, I think it's really causing a lot of uncertainty for the people. As soon as Boris Johnson last week announced the idea of the air corridor or travel corridor, as you call them, we saw searches on the website doubling, all the people really trying to find the best solution to get away and get some sun on a beach. But now we are still here waiting to understand which country are on the list, which one are not. And it's a bit frustrating, to be fair.
Yeah, because what proportion of people going onto your website up until now have been actually booking anything? Because, of course, if they have been booking anything, they've been guessing as to which country's going to be on this OK list and which ones aren't.
Yeah, we see more and more people moving from lookers to bookers. Already over the weekend, we had doubled the reservation we had the weekend before. So I have to say that a lot of people are just making a bet and counting on the fact that there are a number of countries in Europe where the situation is, I would say, actually better than in UK. So they are expecting to be able to travel to this country.
Lookers to bookers, I love that.
And Andrea, you say that the government hasn't got their act together. What do you think has been the problem? Because they have been talking about it for weeks. You were expecting it on Monday, but where have things been going wrong?
Well, I really don't know. To me, it doesn't look like such a difficult job. I would have expected a first list on Monday, and then maybe a week or 2 weeks later, more countries coming on the list. I think probably the problem is that they're trying to get the final list set before announcing it. And I think it's an approach that is not really helping the industry nor the consumer in UK.
Is there a particular country, if it's not on the list whenever it comes out, that will pose a big problem for you?
No, I wouldn't. I don't expect so. Of course, for us, long-haul travel, so US in Asia was an important market. I have no expectation about that to be back. But most of the destinations we sell in the summer are in Europe, so Spain, Greece, Italy, France, typical destination for the British consumers. And I would be really surprised that they will not be on the list, to be frank.
You mentioned Greece. The Prime Minister's dad went to Greece, and he says it was an essential visit because he was going to fix up his property, which he rents out, so is part of his business. And he went via Bulgaria, so it's just that flights from the UK to Greece are banned. What do you think about Stanley Johnson, the Prime Minister's dad's trip to Greece?
Well, I don't like to comment on personal decision, but I have to say that this year is one of the best years to visit Greece or Spain or Italy. There will be a lot less people. Overcrowd will not be an issue. Visiting Venice or Rome in these days is beautiful.
So it might be lovely for tourists being able to wander around St. Peter's in Rome without queues of tourists, or, you know, get in a gondola in Venice without having to queue. But as you say, those crowds mean problems for the travel industry. There have been a lot of really serious warnings about how tough it might be for that part of the economy. How do you see it from your position? How worried are you about your business?
Let's say I'm not very worried for my business because lastminute.com is an online company. We're totally digital, and we don't own inventory, so we don't own hotels, we don't own charters. So for us, it's a bit easier to sail in these stormy days. But then I'm a bit concerned for the industry as a whole. The number of jobs lost in the airline industry is staggering. We saw also this week EasyJet announcing the restructuring. British Airways is firing, I don't know, I think it's 20,000 people. So it's the impact on the industry is very big. And that's why I hope that governments, the UK government, but all the governments around Europe, they can get their act together and realize that at least for the summer, all the data, the medical data are positive, so there shouldn't be much concern about traveling around.
You talked about how inevitably stormy this period has been for your industry because of a pandemic. In the British context, how much more stormy has it been because of what you describe as the uncertain messages you've heard coming out of the British government?
The approach of the British government to the pandemic management has been a bit unconventional. Just to mention one element that I really never understood is they introduced a quarantine on arrival on June 8th. And so the signals and the decision taken so far have been a bit strange to me. And for sure, this is not really helping the industry, the UK travel industry to recover.
Andrea, thank you very much. Some controversial comments there. I think that ministers who've been looking after both the travel industry and the quarantine policy will be a bit about that. He said that, wouldn't he?
Yeah, and I think that it's true, though, that when the government is finally ready to talk about what went wrong, they keep saying when asked, it's not yet time, that we will look back at lessons learned. But I think the decision around not quarantining at an early stage, which a lot of other countries did, will be one of the things that people really want to push them on. Now, the point we've heard privately and a bit in public for people is that actually people coming into the country were mainly, at that point, Brits coming back from half-term holidays when other countries were putting quarantine measures in. But there's no question that has been one of the controversial decisions that I think there will be a lot of unpicking around in the months to come.
Well, on this episode of the podcast, we've already worked nearly with children. Shall we add in some animals now?
I think so.
Because, Laura, I know you have been particularly keen that we speak to our BBC Sport colleague, Andrew Cotter.
Yes.
But it's not really him. It's actually his dogs you want to speak to.
I'm afraid it is.
Because they became very famous during the pandemic for doing this.
One paw to control and a switch. Now Mabel sensing this might be a chance, still waiting, still believing. And you wonder what Olive is doing here, only has to hold on, going to the upright though, high tariff, with no opposable thumbs, high risk at this stage. And it's gone and Mabel takes it. No mercy from the younger dog, who takes this victory just as time runs out, a famous win built on patience and sheer belief.
You know, they've even got a book deal now.
Mabel and Olive, the book.
Yeah. But luckily, we've got Andrew Cotter here with us. Hello, Andrew.
Hello, how are you? How are you all?
Well, where's Olive? That's just Mabel.
I'm testing
there,
your knowledge. Well, yeah, I'm glad you got that one right, first of all.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Mabel. Olive is here. I mean, I could try and turn the camera around and see Olive. She's in a little bit of a... She's a bit cross at the moment because we're supposed to be going out for our 17th walk of the day, and it doesn't happen at this
I thought you were going to tell us that Olive was on CNN, an alternative media booking.
Yeah, exactly. She's doing a two-way with whoever it might be, Kennel Club USA, which I did actually do. So that is a thing in the dim and distant past of all this. You can have that just now, then. Yes. So I'll quickly try and turn it around. Hang on a second. Actually.
Oh yeah,
let's see. There, Olive as well. Can you see Olive as well?
Oh yes.
Yes, there she is.
If Mabel would just get out of the way, that would be great.
Oh,
so,
they're
anyway,
so lovely.
They are, well, they are, yes, but they are. See, I'm afraid now she's got the squeaky rabbit, which I'm going to have to take away because that's just going to be no fun for everyone. You can come back up here if you want.
Go on.
Anyway,
Give us a speak
yes.
of the rabbit if she gets back up on the sofa.
Come on then. Hop. There you go.
There she
Right.
is.
Anyway, that's what's happened to me then. I used to be. Well, I don't think I even was a semi-respectable broadcaster, but now it's just animals. Oh, Olive's coming in for some action as well. So, all right, you go away with that just now. So there we are. That's what I do now.
What was it that sparked the first video, Andrew? What was it that made you think, you know what, I'll just give this a go?
I mean, I actually recorded it the day that a huge amount of sport went, because I was getting ready to go down to Cardiff to do Wales against Scotland in the Six Nations in the final weekend. And then I was given a message that was off. And round about the same time, an email came in from the Masters saying that's off. They all went, so the joke was, what's a sports broadcaster supposed to do? So that was it, to commentate on dogs.
Let us into a secret. Do you always record the commentary as you're doing the video, or do you sometimes do the commentary having already recorded the video?
That secret will go to the grave with me, Olive, and Mabel. No, I mean, I so on the first one, I was commentating away as I did it, but then wasn't quite, I was sort of muttering away to myself, and then you put it on more cleanly afterwards, but you're thinking of what you're going to say. And then it graduates through the commentaries that I did, the various commentaries. Once you get to the online Zoom meeting, it becomes a bit more complicated in terms of editing.
That was quite a production number, that one.
Well, that was a production number. I was miking up my dogs, and as I was miking them, I was thinking, what am I doing? What am I doing? Miking up my dogs. But there we are.
You're about to do an interview with Mo Farah. Now you're putting a microphone on Mabel's collar.
Yeah. Well,
have any like dodgy billionaires made big money offers to buy Olive and Mabel because they just love them so much?
No billionaires have offered to buy my dogs. I mean, I'm looking at them now, and Olive's giving me the hard stare, and I would sell them for the right amount of money. No, I wouldn't part with them for the world. They are throughout all of this. I am frequently reminded when I look at them, when I'm talking to them, when I'm walking them, that they're my dogs and I love them. But then they've become sort of something else slightly, which is a bit weird. But throughout it all, they are just our dogs, and that's I've got the same relationship with them that so many people will have had with their dogs throughout all of this, and they are the sort of morale officers of family, of households, and that's we've been leaning on them a lot.
What a great phrase.
Completely agree with you.
You said there've been some ridiculous offers. What was the most ridiculous?
Well, first of all, I was given lots of offers to commentate on various things, on on yogurt, on pizza, on car rentals being cleaned, and things like that. Lots of things, and lots of well-meaning. First of all, I would also say that social media, which obviously can be a pretty unpleasant place, throughout all of this has been just lovely. 35,000 messages, 40,000 messages over the series of videos coming in. And every single one of them, bar one or two, and they weren't even that unpleasant. They were just sort of questioning on that dog's breakfast when they said, "Are you deliberately starving your dogs just for video content?" I said, "No, this is how Labradors eat. This is what Labradors do." Oh, she's cross at the moment.
You need to go. You guys need to go for a walk. Yeah.
Let's see how cross she is, and then I think you need to say walkies, and we need to say goodbye.
I can't see that. I can't see the shots. You'll just have to tell me if they're in shot. But there we go. I think you can see Mabel there.
Oh, you can't see
and perhaps a little bit of Olive. Can you see Olive as well there?
Yeah, we can see them both.
Anyway, go out for a walk, guys.
That's the shot on which to leave, because you didn't want to see me in the first place. Let's just leave on that shot there. Right, cheers, guys.
Andrew, thank you very much, and to Olive and Mabel for cheering us up throughout this and tonight as well. Yeah. All of this has certainly made up for the lack of sport. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in to the Coronavirus Newscast. We'll be back with another episode very soon. If Laura stops watching the live stream of the dogs going out for a walk.
I would watch a dog channel. I would. I just would. I would. I do really well.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
The Coronavirus Newscast from the BBC.